shocked and immediately shut down any discussion about them moving in. The situation quickly escalated as they started pushing the idea that I had a moral obligation to house my sister because of family duty. I stood my ground, reminding them that it was their responsibility, not mine, to provide for their children. I firmly told them to leave my home, making it clear that I wouldn't feel guilty for their poor planning or lack of space. As they left, I felt a sense of peace knowing I was living on my own terms, free from the pressure of their unwanted expectations. I recalled how back when I was younger, my grandfather allowed my cousin to sleep on the couch, but when I asked for the same favor, he refused and kicked me out. I vented about how I had struggled living with rodents in my employer's garage and then in a cramped apartment for 10 years, but no one from my family ever checked on me. When I shared these memories, my mother began to cry and tried to hug me, but I stopped her and insisted they leave. My brother-in-law, John, told me to toughen up, bringing up his own hard times and saying I had more than enough space in my house since I was single. I sharply told him to stay quiet. My sister cursed at me for raising my voice at her husband, but I stood firm and told them they needed to leave or things would escalate. I made them leave before they could argue back. My anger was clear. I had endured their toxic and selfish behavior for too long, and now their greed was obvious. I was no longer the obedient teenager they used to manipulate. If they had pushed any further, I was fully prepared to involve the police. To clarify, my sister never once offered to pay rent. She and her husband had been freeloading off my parents for over a decade, and now they seemed determined to do the same with me. Despite the clear strain this put on my parents, they never took any steps to encourage her to become independent. Instead, they tried to dump the responsibility onto me. A week after our first confrontation, my mother returned, but this time she was more direct. She argued that my home had enough room to house my sister and her family, again mentioning how crowded things were at their place. I stayed firm in my refusal. When persuasion didn't work, she shifted to veiled threats, implying that my large, mostly empty house was a security risk and having family around would be safer and help with household chores. I dismissed her manipulative tactics and told her clearly to leave and not come back. Just a few days later, a neighbor informed me of suspicious activity around my house. He said he had seen a pregnant woman, a man, and a young boy peering through my windows and hanging around the backyard, likely trying to break in. I was grateful for his vigilance, gave him my contact information, and asked him to keep an eye on things. I had planned to install security cameras, but unfortunately, I didn't act fast enough. 5 days later, the same neighbor called to say he thought someone had broken into my home. When I rushed back, I found out he was right. My sister and her husband, John, had entered through a rear window. When I confronted them, my sister tried to justify their actions, claiming they had no other choice and accusing me of being unreasonable. As I processed her audacity, John smugly commented on how easy it had been. I lost my temper and physically confronted him. My sister tried to get between us, and in the chaos, their teenage son hit me over the head with a bottle, leaving me bleeding. The situation spiraled out of control, and my sister called our parents, telling them I was the aggressor. When the police arrived, they began sorting things out while my sister and John frantically apologized, begging the officers not to arrest their son. Despite their pleas, I was ready to press charges against all of them. However, my sister denied the break-in and assault, claiming it was just a family visit gone wrong and her son's actions were only a prank. When my parents arrived, they immediately took my sister's side, pressuring me to drop the charges. They banded together to defend her and tried to make me out to be the vindictive one. Faced with their collective denial and manipulation, I realized they were determined to gaslight me into submission. I was determined